Fifth Ward Forum. Many people have asked me why I'm elected to have this forum. This is not the first time that we've held forums. We've held senatorial forums, we've held gubernatorial forums. This is the first time we're holding Aldermanic forums. We believe it's important that the candidates have an opportunity to voice their understandings. They have an opportunity to actually think through the questions that we've given them, to develop their answers, so that we as voters can choose based on not a surprise question, but something that they've had time to think about. They will have an opportunity to give their statements, but at the same time, at the end of this, you'll have your opportunity to ask questions of the candidates. So I'm sure people will be coming in. We've always had a fairly full auditorium as it moves forward. So I want to again thank you. And I want to also then thank Cliff Kelly for being our moderator. This is the Fifth Ward Forum. The 20th Ward Forum will be on Thursday night at the same time. So as I would normally say in church, I thank the Lord for each and every one of you. May God bless you. Let us greet Mr. Cliff Kelly.
And you know, we were in a meeting, and the doctor said, would you moderate these events? I just looked at it, you know, what do you mean? He said, would I? When he asked you to do something, he said, I'll be there. I'll do it. But he's nice, you know, like I had a choice. I appreciate it. And in fact, I remember I emceed one of the gubernatorial debates. Yeah, it's great. But this is what we need to do. We need to have leaders like Dr. Frazier to do this sort of thing, because you folks need to hear. And I'm glad it's doing it for the city council members. You know, a lot of people don't understand. By law, we have what's called a strong council, weak mayor form of government. And if you don't believe that, remember what happened when the 29-21 battles, when Mayor Hare Washington was there. The mayor couldn't even make appointments. He couldn't do anything as long as the 29 was stopping it. That's a strong council, weak mayor form of government, which is a good thing, really, because you know, you will come in contact with things you need from your alderman long before you vote for the mayor, because the aldermen are the ones that you talk to, and you know, the people that you see. Let's start from here, and everybody announce their names, please.
Hello, my name is Jedidiah Brown, Fifth Ward Alderman.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Attorney Tiffany Brooks. I'm a candidate for Alderman of the Fifth Ward, City of Chicago.
Good evening. I'm Anne Marie Miles, and I'm running for Alderman of the Fifth Ward.
My name is Jocelyn Hare, and I'm running for Fifth Ward Alderman.
Greetings, my name is Robin Boyd Clark, and I'm running for Fifth Ward Alderman.
Before we get into that, we will get into this, but what we're going to do, which makes a lot of sense, we're going to have everybody have an opening statement, about 5 minutes each, okay? That'll be fine. So let's start with the same order and go right down. Mr. Brown first. 5-minute statement from each candidate.
Is there a timekeeper?
Is there what?
Timekeeper?
Is there a timekeeper? Okay. Oh, she's got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. 5 minutes.
So again, my name is Pastor Jedidiah Brown. I'm running for 5th Ward Alderman. I am a young man that believes that I represent a new age of politics, someone that doesn't owe any favors, is not connected to any corrupt politicians. Because our government has simply become too dysfunctional, too corrupt. We're living in a city that has so much potential, being a global city and the third largest city in America. But what we have is a trend of people blessing the next person that's going to take a seat, and they've gotten away from the heartbeat of the people who live in the communities that vote for them. And when I was a young man, I lived on 71st and Bell, and I lived with my grandmother. And that was the place where I learned the power of community. That was the place where I saw the power of knowing your neighbors. When you're running low on something, you can go right next door and get that supply, that thing that you need. I remember the Chicago where everybody was concerned about all the children's education. They were involved. And if you were a young person walking down the street, people did not fear you, but even the local business owner would give you a small task in their shop, and you would have your first job and your first experience in the workplace. And I want to get the city of Chicago back to caring about people and not about profit. I want us to stop talking about how great we are and start really focusing on how great the people are that stand outside in the cold, holding up signs with your name on it, coming out to early vote. I want us to be the city that understands that it's not always about how much you know, but it is so much about how much you care. I have been the national president of Young Leaders Alliance for going on 2 years now. And that is an organization that I have started here in Chicago in response to the fact that young people felt they didn't have a voice, and that there were too many dead young people in my community when I walked outside of my door. And I started that organization 1 year ago, and it has been an amazing journey because now we're operating in 7 states across the United States of America. Amen. And I've seen the power of young people being inspired and believing, because I'll make it real clear. None of the young people that's on my campaign team are paid. They all believe. And because they believe, I know that we can get back to the Chicago that cares for its citizens. For example, I would never be an alderman that would look like I vote for a community and then I vote in favor of a budget that deprives the south and the west side of Chicago from the same resources that the north side has. If you want to talk about how do we solve the budget crisis in Chicago, you create a playing field where all Chicagoans can thrive and add to the tax base. You can't have blighted communities. You can't prioritize TIF funds to downtown developers who don't need to get land for $1. But again, I'm a young man that understands that sometimes it's not, I've seen the rough side of Chicago too. And I've seen the power of still having my dreams, and I've been able to accomplish a lot. You may have seen me in the news a lot of the times marching when children were being shot, but I didn't stop there. And I remember when if you saw on the news when the young man shot at me in Humboldt Park, and I found out who that young man was, and I ended up working with him, and his life is completely different from the day when he shot at me. And he is one of my strongest forces out in this election, beating the pavement, saying this is the man to elect, because he understood that it's not just about the violence, but it's about the opportunity. It's about the education. It's about the people who care enough to humble themselves. And that's what I want to be. I want to be the young man in government who has enough humility that I'll fight for you, but I'll also submit, hear your voice. I'll be hands-on, walk in the ward, because that's the kind of pastor I am. That's the kind of national president I am. That's the kind of son I am. That's the kind of brother I am. And that's the kind of alderman I will be.
Good evening again. My name is Tiffany Brooks. I'm an attorney. I like to call myself the homegrown candidate. I am a lifelong resident of South Shore. I am a product of the Chicago Public Schools. I graduated from Hyde Career Academy. I attended Loyola University, and I matriculated from the John Marshall Law School. I also have been a social worker. I worked at a little community bank on 71st and Jeffrey, which is now defunct, known as South Shore Bank, formerly Shore Bank, now Urban Partnership Bank. I have a track record of helping so many homeowners from West Garfield Park to Roseland to Inglewood, over $100 million worth of mortgages where I've saved people from predatory loans, from foreclosure, and from being preyed on by the man or the system, from getting 80-20 loans and things of that nature. I am a supporter of reunification in the ward. I am a supporter and an advocate of equal distribution of assets in the ward. I am a supporter and advocate of equal representation in the ward. Because when they implement divide and conquer, that's exactly what happens. It divides and it conquers. This is not about Hyde Park against South Shore, or South Shore against Woodline, or Grand Crossing against South Shore. This is about us against them. And the only way that we are going to defeat them is if we stand together. I don't care if you live in 60615, 60649, or 60619. If you are a community resident of the 5th Ward, your voice needs to be heard. Being an alderman is not an easy job, but what it does take is a whole community behind you to stand up to those that have the power to legislate and decide what's going to happen in your life. Now, if you're willing to vote and allow the same person or the same people to keep making those decisions in your life for your children, for you, for your family, for your property, for your future, and for your legacy, then you continue to vote the way that you've been voting. However, if you're willing to stand up for change, if you're willing to stand up for equal representation, if you're willing to stand up for equal distribution of assets, if you're willing to save the schools in your ward, if you're willing to make sure that your son or daughter can live and breathe the next second and not get shot on the corner of 69th and Cornell, or 69th and Ridgeland, or 67th and Jeffrey, then I advise you to punch 53. Because not only am I an attorney, I'm also a professor. I want to educate the youth on what they need to know when the law pulls them over, and when they stop them, when they say, put your hands up, when they say, let me search your car, and they do not have your consent, and you don't know what the 4th Amendment is, I am that person that you come to. I am advocating for your teachers to have jobs continuously, for your principals to have funding, to have professional development in the schools, and for the police to respect you as a human being, because that is what you are, and that is what you need in your life. Not put down on the ground because I said so, and do what I say because I'm the law, because they are not the law. They are law enforcement. They are not the law. Let me explain that and be very clear. I am the alderman that will not only come and be visible and tangible to my residents and to the community, but I am the alderman that will stand for you as if I'm standing for myself, that will fight for you as if my life depended on it, the same way that I do with my legal clients. I am the alderman that will sit with you, that will cry with you, that will walk with you, and not only walk with you, but I will walk you through it. And I will explain it to you step by step until you get it. So if you're facing foreclosure, if you have drug dealers that are standing in front of your house constantly and the police response time is not good enough, let's talk about it. Let's do something about it. If you're being racially profiled, let's do something about it. You need to punch 53 if you want to be free. I stand for revitalization.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Miles, and I'm running for Alderman of the 5th Ward because the 5th Ward has always been an independent voice in City Council, and I think we've lost that. We have now an alderman who I think engages in grandstanding and theatrics and is not talking about the important issues that matter to the 5th Ward. So if you elect me, I will tell you what I'm going to do. Number one, you will get good constituent services. I have run an elder law practice for many years, and believe me, my elderly clients would find someone else to go to if I didn't return their phone calls, their emails, and get their matters taken care of. And as alderman, I will be answering emails and phone calls within 48 business hours. I've been doing that through my campaign, and I will continue to do that as alderman. The second thing you'll get with me are businesses on Stony Island. Stony Island has 40 to 60,000 cars a day. We have the highest grossing Starbucks in the Chicagoland area at 71st Street and the highest grossing Save-A-Lot on 73rd. So we know that if we build it, they will come. And I will be making sure that we build it, that we bring businesses to Stony, and when we improve Stony Island and have more businesses, it will spread out to 63rd Street, 67th Street, 71st Street, 73rd Street. So business development is going to be the most important thing that I will do. In addition to which, it's bringing a grocery store to Jeffrey Plaza, because South Shore is a food desert, and that is simply unacceptable for a community which has all the resources of South Shore. The next thing I want to focus on is education. We talk about being a world-class city, and we're going to China and all over, and we're talking about how great we are. Well, we don't stay great, become great, if we don't have a world-class educational system. And we have to support the Chicago public schools, and whatever extra money we can find has to go into early education for children, because that's where we get the most bang for our buck. So I will be working to enhance early childhood education in the Chicago public schools. And then what I will be doing as an independent voice is talking about the issues of social justice and criminal justice. Because when I ran 4 years ago, I learned that a lot of young people get arrested for things my children wouldn't get arrested for. They end up then being faced with choices of pleading guilty to a felony so they can get out of there. And then when I try to help them, because I volunteer at Cabrini Green Legal Aid, I can't get the records expunged because they're felonies. And so by pleading guilty, they may be told that the case is over, but they've just ruined their lives. So I put together a citywide consortium of the Union League Club, Cabrini Green Legal Aid, the Office of the State Appellate Defender, and even Justice Paul Biebel, who's the Chief Justice of the Criminal Courts. And we've prepared educational information to give to our young people of what to do when you're arrested, what to know before you plead. And so I will be out there talking about these issues, going through them, and being the conscience, the voice of Chicago's 5th Ward and of the city. And so I ask for your vote on February 24th, or before if you go for early voting. Punch number 57, and together we can change this ward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Miles.
My name is Jocelyn Hare, and I would say the path that kind of led me to being here right now started about 10 years ago. I used to work for the Chicago Public Schools in central office, and the project I was assigned to work on was called Business Service Centers. And essentially what it was doing was taking a lot of the functions from central office downtown and putting them out in the field in 6 regional offices. So that meant on a daily basis I had to work with the heads of operation, budget, purchasing, safety and security, all of these people that sort of run the school district, not on the curriculum side, but how does the district function. And it was an incredible job. I got to see schools across the city, everywhere, different types of schools. This was also when Renaissance 2010 started. And there was huge controversy about that. I was there and I saw exactly what happened, how it was implemented, why decisions were made, why they were, and it was corrupt. It was disheartening, and it made me feel like I needed to do something about it, but I couldn't at that moment. So I left there and I worked at UIC for 5 years, and working in education policy, I came to kind of realize, you know what, to understand education, you really have to understand what else is happening in the city. What happens when we tear down public housing along State Street? well, we lose thousands and thousands and thousands of students who would be going to school in those buildings. Okay, so then we think about demographics affects this. Do you have a grocery store in your neighborhood? That affects our policy, right? That affects how our students get to school. So I decided to go to the University of Chicago and study public policy. And while I was there, I had the incredible fortune of working with former Mayor Daley and also the mayor of Gary, Indiana, Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. And working in Gary for the past 3 years, I've seen exactly how much you can do at the local government level. In a city like Gary, where there are very few resources, lots of blight, lots of very similar problems to certain parts of Chicago, they're doing outstanding work there. And because of the outstanding leadership, that's the key difference. If you've got a strong leader who has a plan and who knows how to use data to make plans and works with the community, you get good outcomes. This past year in Gary, we applied for a grant from the state and were awarded $6.6 million to demolish houses there. That was followed up by a $200,000 grant from Community Progress that I wrote to help take a look at the technological systems. So there's money and there's resources out there that we can bring to cities that aren't being taken advantage of right now. There's programs out there. One of the things we're doing with the hardest hit funding we received is to do deconstruction. So instead of demolishing these houses in Gary, we're having folks who were formerly incarcerated, training them on those skills, and then having them deconstruct the house, and you sell the pieces for money. What that does then is that money that you make when you sell the resources, it pays for the training, it pays people's salaries, and people have jobs, and then you're also getting rid of blight. So there's a lot of really easy things that we can be doing in cities right now that make our lives better. I decided to run for alderman back in September, and I was at Alderman Hairston's 5th Ward meeting down in South Shore. And there was a man there, and he started filming. He started filming the meeting, and all of a sudden, Alderman Hairston stopped her meeting and said, "Are you filming this? Put that camera away. You can't film this." He said, "Alderman, isn't this a public meeting?" "No, it is not a public meeting. This is my ward meeting. Put that camera away." The rest of the audience reacted just like that. "Yes, you are a public servant. We pay your salary. This is a public meeting." What kind of transparent and open politician is that? If I were alderman, I would videotape all of them. You can't make it to the meeting? We'll put it online. You can watch it then. You know, it's just like, we have these people who are trying to hold on to their positions, and what they do is they get elected every 4 years, they raise all their money, and then they're just there. They don't know how to solve our problems. I spoke to a group of urban planners about a couple weeks ago. These are 25-year-old kids, and you know what I told them? Through this whole campaign process, the one thing I've learned, the one thing, the big secret, you know more. You know more about how to run the city than they do. You know your community. You're in there. You are smart. You know how to work with people. You all should be running. These are the people that should be running for office and not the people we have. If you look at our options, we're looking at for mayor, our options for governor, what kind of leadership do we have around here? And part of that is because our current politicians are not training our youth. We are not developing young leaders. We need to be doing that. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck with these options that are terrible options every single time. You know, we got to get people active. We got to get people involved in the community. One of the things I've learned most through campaigning is that talking to thousands of people, there are so many people.
Okay, everyone, my name is Robin Boyd Clark, and I'm a candidate for alderman of the 5th Ward. I've lived in the community since 1997. I'm a parent, a business owner, a property owner, and I do ordinary things in extraordinary ways. I have a bachelor's degree from Tuskegee University in construction engineering and management. I have a master's of art degree in inner city studies education. My thesis was on African-centered career development, how to own and control your community through entrepreneurship. I put theory into action. I owned the Auntie Anne's at River Oaks Mall. We employed people. We built that store as one of the expansion stores when the mall did the enclosure. I also owned a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant at Broadway and Belmont. And as much chicken as we eat, if you could believe this, we were the only African-American franchisee in the entire state of Illinois. Okay, so we need to know who owns what and what we're actually supporting. I've run a community development corporation.
Pardon me, I'm sorry. Make sure you're talking into the mic.
Okay.
Okay. Make sure everybody hears what you're saying. Forgive me.
I've run a community development corporation where I'm focused on economic development, job creation, and business development. That CDC was located in the Pullman Bank building on the 10th floor. I worked on TIFs and several strategic plans for various communities across the city of Chicago. I've done community wellness on several levels across the city, and I'm the only candidate that has historic preservation as a campaign issue because I knew that there was going to be a library, and I knew that they weren't going to be able to use microreefs, and I knew they were going to have to use one of the parks, possibly. I got into historic preservation because the building that I own on 71st Street was the first campaign and legislative office of President Barack Obama when he was the 26th District Senator for Illinois. People from the community asked me to try to landmark that building. We tried really hard. The alderman did not support it. Okay, that's enough on cup. I've worked on, keep it on positive. I've worked as the founder of several organizations in South Shore, basically the South Shore Chamber, the South Shore Historical Society, the Docent Council, and the Tourism Center. I've been an administrator of budgets upwards of $250 million. I've worked for quasi-government and city agencies. I've done customer service, and I've led many projects. I believe that I embody the spirit of Harold Washington. I'm a people person. I want to see people succeed. I want to see them reach their potential. I'm a dream weaver, not a dream crusher. I'm a unifier. I'm a builder of structures and people. I built 62 townhouse units in the South Shore community at 71st and South Shore Drive. When I decided to run, which I didn't, actually some people came to my business and asked me to run for alderman. I got out in the street and I surveyed the community and they said they wanted a change. I read the charter for the city of Chicago. I know where my ward is. My ward does not include 71st Street, south of 71st Street and Stony Island after 2016. So any development that's going to happen there, it will be in conjunction with another alderman. I am approved by the Lisa Madigan's office for the Open Meetings Act, so I understand that won't be no clandestine meeting. I also understand the FOIA, and I'm also certified as the Open Governments Act. So I'm not here because I decided to be here and self-appointed. I'm here because people knew that I had the skill sets. I can start day one, ready to roll. I'm not talking about what I think I can do. I'm talking about what I have done. I've had businesses. I know how to speak to business owners, developers. I know how to do land assemblage, site development, and all of the things that we need. I know how to hire people and fire people. And so again, I'm talking to you not about what I think. I'm talking to you about what I know and what I have done. And I am weak. And I know what is possible.
Thank you so much. We've got 5 great candidates here. But when you think about the incumbent and 4 of these candidates, they're all women. I know it. Hey, that might be good. Who knows? I'm just saying that, in so many instances we talk about, I had some conversations earlier, we're talking about young men now. And of course, Mr. Brown was talking about trying to train young men and so forth. And I think the ladies are great. There's no doubt about it. It's just that we like to see. Well, we had some great opening statements, so now we're going to talk about what I mentioned earlier, economic, community, and workforce development questions. First question, and if you want to respond, fine. If you don't, that's okay too, but if you do, let's keep it fairly short, okay? Because you've given some great opening statements. What specifically will you proactively do to attract attract, retain, and expand businesses in the ward. Now, for instance, I think Ms. Clark had already said that she got all of this experience in doing so. But and if you want to respond, you can still do it. Who wants to respond to that question?
You have to work with the chambers, the Chamber of Commerce, the SSAs, all of the representatives of the businesses in the ward. You have to speak with each and every one of them. You have to get a feeling of what they need in order to thrive and survive. If you go to 71st Street, it used to be the main artery in the ward. I remember as a child, there was no mall, there was no Dominic's. There was Aquinas, there was houses there. This is before they leveled everything and built the mall. That's how far back my roots go in 71st Street. If anyone here has lived in South Shore, you remember Alpars being on the north side of the street that stretched all the way from Paxton to about Oglesby. And so there were businesses that lined, there were Woolworth, there were many different businesses, there was Jocelyn's, there were so many different businesses in the ward. But I want to talk to these business owners and I want to find out what they need. I want to take an inventory of the kind of businesses that the community wants in the ward. Because you know what you need. Do you need a shoe store? Do you need a clothing store? I know you need a grocery store. Yeah. How many South Shore residents are hungry? I know you need a grocery store. I know you need fresh produce. I know you need that. But I want to know what other kind of businesses do you need that don't exist there? And there's a long list.
All right,
there are no businesses.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to respond to that? Yes.
Really quickly,
Mr. Brown.
The first thing that we have to do is take care of what we have before we try to attract something new into our community. So once again, we will not prioritize TIF funds to downtown areas. They will remain in this community and they will go to blighted business districts. What we have done in this campaign, which I'm very proud of, is we have made it an intentional effort to go to every business in the 5th Ward, find out what items they purchase in common so that we can get them purchased as a ward to lower their overhead and start purchasing as a ward. The second thing we got to do is make sure that we do respect the business experts who live in the community. We have to know who they are, and we have to respect our chambers who do diligent work on a daily basis. But what I want to see happen is through local ingenuity, because anything south of 60th Street does not scream the land of opportunity. And people move into areas where they find opportunities that fit their lifestyle. So what we want to do is motivate, encourage, and gather the residents through bringing back ward precinct captains who will galvanize the voices and expertise of their particular areas. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to identify those in the ward who desire to have businesses where they live.
I know exactly what I want to do and what I want to bring to the ward and what the ward wants me to bring to it. The other part of this, though, is workforce development. And there are many jobs nowadays for computer literate people. And I'm going to be working with different programs to make sure that our young people have access to these training programs, whether I have to have them in my office, whether I'm bringing in other people, because there are jobs that are good paying jobs that are begging for people with computer skills. And the other area I want to work on in terms of workforce development is that municipal employment has always been a road to the middle class for many different cultures and ethnicities. And I want to make sure that we have a representation of African Americans in municipal employment. And that can be by showing them what jobs are available, by helping have mentors, by bringing people into the schools so that they know that there are these opportunities for good jobs.
All right, thank you very much.
The first thing I do in office is do community asset mapping, and that's something that cities are doing all over right now, and it's really easy to do. Youth are involved, you get a mobile phone, and you go around your neighborhood, and somebody puts together an app for you, and you just mark, is this the Walgreens? Where's the dentist? Where's, where's the grocery store? Is there one? When you plot out all this stuff, where are the churches, where are the schools, you can see exactly how far everything is away from you. You can see where your holes are in the community. So then when we have that, we've got a visual representation that we can take to the community and say, hey, this is what we got. What would you like to see here? One of the issues that I heard about when I was talking to some of the youth, They were saying Dominic's was too expensive anyways, you know, and that they didn't want that Dominic. So when we talk about should we bring Mariano's, should we bring an Aldi, we need to have this discussion. We actually need to decide as a community and decide together instead of making these sort of unilateral decisions and just saying what's best for the community. So I think when you have the data and you can present it to people, you can show what's there and then make really good decisions together.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Clark, did you?
Yes, one of the things that I wanted to say was that we have 1,400 home-based businesses in South Shore. We have 750 businesses and 103 vacancies. I worked on the 1998 TIF designation for 71st and 71st and Stony Island Avenue. That TIF has never been utilized properly. We do not have a small business improvement fund on 71st Street, and we need one. There's one on 53rd Street, and as we can see, Hyde Park is kind of looking like a real community, okay? And 71st Street is looking beat down and busted. Yeah. So we need to focus on how we can utilize the TIF. I think we should also be going to Las Vegas to the Retail Expo show. That's where you meet all of the national credit tenants. And they serve as anchors. But I want to see sustained, organic development in our community, where people from our communities own the businesses that are created on the commercial district on 71st, South Chicago, 53rd, and the board. And so I think it's important to identify, do a needs assessment, identify how to match businesses with other businesses, and maybe some people should partner and do like an LLC. So if someone owns a insurance company and someone is a lawyer and someone has a construction company, well, that's a good marriage right there, okay? And so we want to see the putting together and strong utilization of businesses in the community. And we want them to be area stakeholders because those are the people we can hold accountable.
Thank you very much, we think. But the next part, as you know, do you have an economic development background and a proven track record in business relations, business solicitation, and negotiation? Now, how many people would even fit into that? I know that, of course, Ms. Clark would. Has anybody else got? Okay, you both have. Go right ahead.
The mayor of Robbins, which is one of the poor suburbs in Chicago. I served as an advisor to her. I've also had the pleasure. My mother raised us, and she was pretty much a self-sufficient, strong woman who's owned 5 businesses, and I've been able to work in every level of operation of her business. From restaurants to beauty salons to clothing stores. We've done it all. And I've been able to see the processes from management to entry level, hiring and firing, going to lunch, doing it too short, too long, working with government officials. I've been privy to those processes, but more than anything currently, as the national president of Young Leaders Alliance, I actually sit in a lot of business meetings, and we help bridge the gaps for individuals who don't have funding, don't have opportunity, who want to start a business. We have helped a lot of people who have dreamed and desired to run and own businesses, own them, but not only that, to provide them with the support so that they'll be sustainable and have longevity in the businesses that they started, as well as identifying what kind of businesses are needed in areas so that it's not a recycling of services that doesn't really meet the need of the community.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brooks?
So as a former banker, I do have economic development experience. I can say that Shore Bank has had relationships with every major faith-based institution in Chicago as well as minor, and we've also helped many community and small businesses flourish. We help them get startup loans. We've helped them understand the meaning of not only having good credit, but having revolving credit and keeping that credit to the point where if you need something and establishing that relationship with your financial institution, you can go there and you can explain to them. And this is why we need a CDC, a Community Development Corporation, in the ward. We need people that you can reach out to who have financial and economic sense that can direct your path and show you and say, let me suggest this is what you need to do in order to accomplish your goal. Anybody know Curtis Lock and Key on 79th Street that's been there for years? Okay, they're one of our former clients. Apostolic Church of God, one of our former clients. The list goes on, but I've had the opportunity to work with so many people in the community, in the 5th Ward, in Chatham, I mean, just spread across the city, who have been to our bank and come to us to say, we need help. And what we did was we provided them a way so that they could keep their business and maintain their legacy and their empire for their children and our youth and our future to come. So yes, I do, negotiating that from a banker's standpoint is totally different from being on the other side of that table when you come in to ask for some money. So I completely understand it. I also own a small law practice, so I understand what it feels like when your payables haven't come in and they're net 30 days, 45 days, when your real estate sale hasn't sold and you're looking for that money to come in. So I can understand on both ends of the spectrum.
All right, thank you.
So as an attorney, I too know what it's like to run a law practice, and that certainly is a business. But as an attorney who does trusts and estates, I've been involved in family planning and in making sure that businesses can continue to grow when there's been a change in leadership. And so I've been involved in many different counties and states with small businesses growing to large businesses. So yes, I have economic development experience.
Okay, thank you.
So urban policy is my training, and that includes learning about economic development, and that's a lot of the work we've been doing in Gary, which means we've been talking to employers. There are thousands of jobs right now for truck drivers and steel welders, and so we need to figure out how do we connect trainings with the jobs. And beyond that, when we've applied for grant funding to do a lot of the revitalization work, that means working with partners at both the local, state, and federal level, and also community partners. So the largest grant that we won this past year had church groups involved, it had nonprofit groups involved, it had the city, it had lots of people who were invested in the community. And that's one of the things that I excel at, is bringing together groups and resources to solve some of these city problems.
Okay, thank you.
I've stated that I have had businesses in the past, and that I had successful businesses in the past, but that's not just based on my assessment. That's based on Black Enterprise Magazine, Cranes Magazine, Success Magazine, WVON, Rising Stars, and several other publications and media outlets. So it's not just Robin's assessment of how Robin does business. When you're an alderman, you're responsible for several entities, not just your own entity. You're responsible for city entities. You have to answer for how the services are rendered and how the money gets spent. It's much different than having your own small business. You have to be able to work with large budgets, and you need to understand budgeting.
Do you support Chicago bringing the presidential library to our city? And if so, do you have a strong opinion of which location you would prefer, Jackson Park or Washington Park?
And of course, I support the presidential library coming to the south side of Chicago. My original choice after Michael Reese would have been the Southworks place, Lakeside Development, because they have a blank slate to work with, and it would have also assisted business growth and development of many ancillary businesses all the way past 57th Street. That would have helped many, many people in reference to job creation and other kinds of supportive services. And that actually could have grown the entire southeast corridor of Chicago. But based on the fact that we only have these other two places to choose from, though I'm running for 5th Ward Alderman, I think the greatest good would probably be done for the library to be at Washington Park. And I say that because University of Chicago already owns that land, and they really don't have to use the parks. And I think that you know, if we would have had not failed leadership, if we would have had community meetings and all of that when it was supposed to happen, maybe things might have shaken out a little bit differently. And so I think that, you know, Washington Park is probably the best place for it.
Ms. Hare?
I'm strongly in favor of the Obama Library on the south side, and I would say as to whether it should be Washington Park or Jackson Park, the Presidential Library is going to bring in a ton of economic development. These are really rare things in our country, and they're incredibly positive. It's going to bring lots of jobs, lots of tourism, lots of dollars to the south side. I am very happy if it's even either park. However, it's also got to get managed with the alderman, you know? And so if you put it in Jackson Park and then you have the current alderman being the person who's organizing and talking to people, and she clearly cannot work with people, that's going to be a problem. And that's going to be an embarrassment for the city. So then I say Washington Park. That being said, if any of these candidates up here happen to win alderman, yeah, let's bring it to the 5th Ward. It's going to be outstanding. What I said to the JPAC Advisory Board the other day, or actually it was a few months ago, look, if they're talking about potentially bringing it to Jackson Park, make your wish list now and dream big. What is every single thing that you would want to have in the park? Because if they come to you and they want to take your park space, you have a list. And that's exactly what they did. So I'm very happy that it's going to be down here.
Okay, Ms. Miles?
Okay. So, the Obama Library should be on the south side of Chicago. And it's also not a surprise that we want it on the south side of Chicago. And when I talked about being independent of the University of Chicago, I think that the aldermen in the 3rd, which is Washington Park, the 4th, the 5th, the 20th, maybe the 7th or the 10th, as Robin was talking about, all those aldermen should have come together and sat down with the university and said, university, tell us what your thoughts are, and we'll tell you what we're going to okay. And instead, we allow the university to split up. You know, I was talking to one of the vice presidents there the other day, and he said, oh yeah, every ward wants a little piece of us. I thought, and yeah, and you want the divide and conquer strategy. That's right. Well, if I'm alderman, we'll all be working together to make sure that the community's wishes are respected.
That's right.
I'm also in favor of the Obama Presidential Library being put on the south side. If elected alderman, I would say, of course, Jackson Park. I would say, don't hate the messenger and miss the message. Don't say, oh, it's the University of Chicago. We already know what they're capable of. We've already seen the immense power that they command, the amount of money that they have behind them. However, we don't want to miss the opportunities that it's going to bring to our community. So yes, I am in favor of it. I am not in favor of rents going up and you're no longer able to live in South Shore. I am not in favor of that, okay? I am in favor of a community agreement where the city has to make some promises, and they better, not should, they better come through on them. Because we built this community on our backs with our labor, and we are not giving it up just because you put some library in the middle. We love Obama. Thank you for electing him, but we will not give up our homes. We will not give up our schools. We will not give up the activities, the tennis courts, the golf courses. We are not giving up South Cultural Center. So that long list of wishes will turn into a long list of this is what's going to happen if I am elected alderman. We are not going to move out of our ward just to accommodate what they want. They're going to make some accommodations for us. And it's time that we start standing together and making them accountable and transparent to what they're promising us. And we can do it. Please don't think that we cannot.
That's right.
We can do it. So let's stand together and make sure that when it comes to Jackson Park, that we are ready to stand together and make sure that they know together we stand, and we're not divided, so forget the fall.
Pretty much covered a lot of things that I would have said, so I'll just say I am certainly in favor of it coming to the south side of Chicago. I'm actually excited to see this be a land of opportunity, but I'll make this clear. Parks are very important to a demographic of residents in our ward. And if we take something away from the park, we have got to develop something else equal or better, just as much beautiful and more to be utilized. And this is what I'll promise as I add to, they've all spoken my sentiment, but I also say this: never again under my administration will you find out what's going to happen to your community when it is too late, all the decisions have been made, and you have no voice in what's going to be happening. And what I also promise is, as an alderman, is for you to understand that, as Tiffany Brooks has said, that we have to also, hold them accountable to the promises, get a community benefits agreement, but we must put strong legislation in place that protects homeowners, and we must also hold the people who are trying to monopolize our community, like Mac Property and the university. We need to hold them accountable and make sure that they're not taking advantage of our seniors, taking advantage of our low income, and we must protect the diversity that made the Fifth Ward great, and protect the independence that made it great, and send a strong message to City Hall that when Jedidiah Brown shows up, I'm showing up with 50,000 voices of the Fifth Ward, and you better take care of our community.
When we talk about, oh, we need to increase police, oh, we need to just, punish people harder, that does not solve the problem. The problem is a lack of opportunities. And what we see in Chicago is every time we have summer job opportunities for youth, the crime rate goes down. When we have things for our kids to do, the crime rate goes down. When we invest in their education and when we invest in early childhood ed, we have better outcomes. Why are we not putting the money in on the front end? Why are we putting it on the back end? That's a big problem in the city. But you know what? This is not just a ward problem. It is not a city problem. It is not a state problem. We have this problem across our country. This is a result of hundreds and hundreds of years of racism and slavery. It is something that we need to be working on because things are not fixed yet. Things are not equal. And with public safety, what we have in Chicago is a system where we're locking up poor, young, black men. That's who's getting arrested. And they're going to bond court and they can't pay their bond. And then they sit in jail until trial. How is that fair to anybody? That is not fair to anybody. It does not improve their lives. It does not improve the lives of the people who are working on that because they know it is wrong. This is something that we can change as a society. But you need to have strong leaders, and you need to have leaders who know how to legislate, because some of these changes that we need to work on are ridiculous drug laws, the ways that we criminalize people. That needs to change, but that can't happen at the aldermanic level. You need to make partners with the judicial system and the lawyers. You have to be able to work with people at all sorts of levels, and you have to be able to coalition build to get your message across. We've got to be able to work together, but we've got to identify what the real problems are instead of saying we just need more police, we need to punish more people. We need opportunities, and that is what I'll help bring to the Fifth Ward.
Thank you.
Well, in reference to public safety, I think that we need to look at how the police officers are being trained. They need sensitivity and diversity training. Those things take place at the police academy. So when I'm alderman, one of the things that I will be doing is taking a visit to the police academy, because I want to see exactly what they're telling people, and officers need to know the law. We also need, I think, gun control to some extent, and I also think the main problem that you cannot throw money on is the level of trust that exists between the community and the police officers. And when people report crimes, they need to be taken seriously. And oftentimes, we don't get follow-up on the things that go on in our community. So we have to make sure you get an incident number, you get a report number, and you're able to follow up on whatever incident you report.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Brown, please.
I'm gonna need a little more time because this is a subject I'm
No, we don't.
I'm just saying.
People have been doing
well.
well.
First thing is,
We got a lot to get through.
okay, I got it. So we need to create an office of neighborhood stabilization, and we need to go to the young people who have had contact with police officers or the studies have shown are likely to commit a crime, and we need to get to them, and we need to parallel a journey from school to workforce for all of these, all of our young people. And we need our police officers to be more proactive active instead of reactive. They should be walking the neighborhood. There should be sensitivity training. But when they are drug busts, they tend to give more money for more drug busts. How about give some money for mentoring, for prevention programs, and also we must also have community input. I would love to see that when an arrest is made, that it is publicized to the community to know who's getting arrested. And I think that just as an officer has to get their police report approved by a sergeant, the community should also have enough input on who's protecting their neighborhood, and those cops should resemble who live there. You must understand the condition of the community for you to properly police it. And then the last thing that I will say about that, we need to also deal with the morale of our police officers, because they deal with the worst of the citizens. We got to let them know that their pensions will be protected, but then we also have to let them know that we appreciate them, and the way we do that is that we bridge the gap, get the community talking to the police. I've already been to the police academy. I've already seen what they're going through, and I know what needs to get done. I wish I had more time, because I'm young, black, and I've seen these police so many times. Every dream that I've had has been stagnated by an encounter with the police. But we need to change the trend. That's 156, and we're going to deal with these police officers in the city of Chicago.
Let's go to Ms. Brooks.
So, in dealing with public safety and crime, response time is not always the answer. Because once you arrest someone and they get out and they have to re-enter society, then what do? The statistics show they go right back to doing what they used to do if they don't have any other opportunities that are available to them. And make no mistake about it, we can talk about economic development all day long. If there's an obscene amount of crime in your neighborhood and in your ward, you will not get any businesses, because they do not feel safe there, and they don't want to be robbed or stuck up, and nobody is going to come and live in your community where there is an obscene amount of crime. So you have to start, and public safety can be handled in layers. We have to have prevention, intervention, and response. All three work together. The prevention needs to start on the lowest form. We need to start with our babies, with our children. No, little Malik, it is not okay for you to wear your pants down and pretend like you're pointing the gun at your best friend. That is not okay. That's not okay. It's not okay to sell drugs. It's not okay to go outside and do other things, smoke, drink. We need to start on the lowest level, and we need to go into our schools and make sure that our children are learning this. We need to have the dads involved, the moms involved, the grandmothers involved, the aunts, the neighbors. Community policing needs to re-enter. We need to take a tip from our neighbors in Woodlawn. They have the Public Safety Alliance. They have the Safe Passage. We need to take some tips from the contiguous wards that are employing these strategies, because guess what? They're working for them, and their crime is down. It's down. It's not down where we are, because nobody is taking heed to this. They're saying, oh, well, there were less shootings than last year. Well, there were still some shootings. Crime is down, but it can be better. How about that? So if I go to Lil Malik's brother, who's 15, and I say, let me tell you something. I will help you get your GED, and I will also help you get some job training, and I will send you if you want to go to college or if you want to go to work, either or. But I need you to let your brother know that that's unacceptable, and that's not something that he is supposed to do. And I need the moms to enforce it, and everybody to reinforce that. And on the intervention level, when we go to these schools, to the elementary schools, we need to get to the high school, and we need to invade those high schools and come in and let them know these are the things that we expect from our teenagers, and we will continue to work with you in order to achieve them. And then if they still don't listen, I'm sorry, the response is where the police come in. But we have to have mutual respect from CPD. We will not back down to them.
All right, thank you. This is going to be quick, because, again, we've got so much to cover, and we have a limited time now. So, respond to this as quickly as you can, because this is important. But this has to do with education. And I'd like you to respond to whether you are in favor or not of an elected school board, which is on the ballot in 38 wards. And what type of initiatives would you develop, authorize the support for the improvement of schools, including alternative schools, charter schools, or contract schools in the ward, and anything else briefly that you can tell us about education. And this has got to be pretty quick because we've got a number of things and we only have about another 20 minutes at the most. Okay, so please bear with me on that.
Another subject I'm passionate about, we definitely must have an elected school board, but we also must have parents involved with their children's education. It doesn't matter what kind of educational institution there is, parents must be involved. So we've created a plan that are going to give children not covered in the Chicago Star Scholarship Program the same kind of funding to go to college as long as their parents are involved in some kind of activity for their young people. And then working in conjunction with the state, we're going to identify the young people who are not currently involved in an extracurricular activity, because our children should be involved and active all day long as much as they can possibly be. And we're going to create a beautification team utilizing our young people, and then we're going to, the plan is actually going to be on the website within the next 24 hours, but we're going to make sure that all the young people who are not in after-school program are connected to some kind of mentorship program, some kind of service that's going to help them, so that we send an entire generation. I'm committing to send an entire generation of Fifth Ward children to school from early childhood all the way to college. I'm going to be the alderman that's in the school.
Education is critical to the growth of the Fifth Ward and to the growth of our youth in the Fifth Ward. We have to start off with the STEM schools that feed into the high school. So let's, for instance, Hyde Park Career Academy is the high school in the Fifth Ward. We also have Gary Comer, but that's a charter school. And if we go around to the schools that feed into them, the elementary schools, the Horace Manns and the Bret Harts and things of that nature. In Woodlawn, they have the Woodlawn Community Schools and the Andrew Carnegie's, all of the schools that neighbor around. We need to start there, and we need to implement programs. We also need to have funding for the teachers and the principals, because they need professional development. They need training as well in order to be able to teach our children properly and teach them what they need in order to make it if they decide to go to college. How can you send them to college if they don't have the skills to survive? Because I am a professor and I've seen some 25-year-olds, 35-year-olds that do not know how to compose an essay of 150 words, and that is sad. Okay. So we have to start in our STEM schools and reach through all the way through the high schools through 12th grade and make sure that the children are being properly educated.
Thank you.
So I'm in favor of an elected school board, and I also am in favor of making sure that our Chicago public schools offer a world-class education. I am tired of money going to charter schools. I know there is a myth among many of the people that I talk to that say, oh, my children will get a better education in a charter school. But if you look at their performances, it is not better than many Chicago public schools. I want our money to be invested, and I would work with state legislators to make sure that we have a better funding base coming from the state. There is currently a Senate Bill number 1, which provides for a reallocation of monies and would bring millions of dollars to Chicago public schools, and I will work with them to get that passed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Hare?
With regard to elected school board, so the work I do in Gary has a terrible school system, and it's an elected school board. Just because we switch does not necessarily mean that's going to solve our problems. If that's what the people want, though, then we need to know how to make that change. We need to know how to go to the governor. We need to know how to work with the mayor and convince him. Those are big tasks. With education, we have so many conflicting sides, I think, in Chicago. You have public, you have private, you have charter, you have performance, and nobody's really dialoguing about what the real issue is. The real issue is we don't have enough funding for our schools. And instead of fighting each other, one of the best pieces of advice I got with education was from Terry Mazzani's, head of the CCT. And for a little bit, right after I think it was Ron Huberman left, and Ron Huberman left CPS in a mess. Yep. Terry said, you know, he was there for a little bit. I was like, what'd you learn? What did you get from this? And Terry said, it doesn't have to be acrimonious. It does not have to be this hateful between CTU and downtown. Because when you have a relationship like that, you don't get anything done and everyone suffers. So With an elected school board, I think we can get there, but you gotta be able to coalition build, and you gotta be able to sell that. You gotta sell that to everyone so that you can get your 51%. That's something that I'm good at doing. With regards to education down here, technology, I think we've got to be introducing our kids to technology. Absolutely. As soon as you get them online, your entire world opens up. You get to talk to people from across the world, across the city. You know, it's fantastic. And there's all sorts of resources out there. This is the future. This is the direction we're going. CPS spends hundreds of millions of dollars on textbooks, paper textbooks every year. Your history book, it's dated as soon as it's printed. Why are we not having them use ebooks? You know, the history is right there. It's updated constantly. We're going to teach our kids to be computer literate. These are the skills that they need to know. That is what we're going to focus on.
Thank you, Ms. Hare.
Yes, I taught in the classroom. I taught 4th grade in the Harvey public school system. One of the things that I can tell you as a frontline person at the time that's missing in these classrooms is teaching kids how to tap into their gifts. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is cool, but you need to understand who you are and what your purpose is. So, STEM training, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, the STEAM program, kids need to be well-rounded. I'm definitely in support of an elected school board. Some of the programs that I'm already working on are, I'm working with the William Tillman Maritime Academy as a member of the Jackson Park Yacht Club. I'm part of the Sea Scout program, and we trained people from Prologue Alternative High School on how to sail. Kids, we purchased a marina. There were boats there, and these kids are learning boat repair. Kids were employed this summer, and they were making $450 to $650 per rescue of a vehicle. I also think that kids need to be able to tap into wellness. We don't have prayer in school. Maybe we need to have meditation time. Kids need to move around. They need recess. The other problem I think we have in South Shore is that we have a selective enrollment high school, South Shore High School. And a lot of those kids that live in the South Shore community, the 5th ward, the south end of the ward, a lot of them are not able to test into that school. So I think at some point, that's going to become a major issue in South Shore. And then lastly, one of the programs I think I would like to see implemented is a LEAD program, Leadership in Energy, Environmental Design, Green Technologies, and Construction Training. And these people, you don't have to have a degree for this, you just have to have a track record on working in sustainability, and these people are making $75 per hour.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We've got some very innovative and progressive people here. All right, this is our last question. We didn't get to everything. There's so much. We didn't get to TIFs, tax increments, financing, community development, block grants. You folks, but you hear these people. This is not the only thing they think. They're just not. They're talking to us today, but they're talking to everybody. All right. What would you have done differently as the alderman? And how would you rate the job of the alderman over the past 5 years? They got the questions now. Everybody got the questions. As the aldermanic candidate, how would you rate the current alderman's performance?
I struggled with that because there is a piece of me that tries to be fair. But I really had a hard time with this one. To rate her performance on constituent services, I think no. To rate her performance on economic development in the ward, no. To rate her performance in terms of being an independent voice, for example, calling out the university about where was the Obama president, where did they want the Obama presidential library? No, I don't think we got that. And we didn't have anybody calling out Mac Properties. One of the biggest developers or residential landowners in Hyde Park. They support her. They've given her tens of thousands of dollars for her campaign. And about 3 months ago, she let them buy part of Bret Hart parking lot and alley for the magnificent sum of $1. Okay. What I would have done differently was she had an opportunity to really bring the ward together when she started participatory budgeting.
Yes.
And I worked on one of those committees, and quite truthfully, I thought if she makes this work, there's no point in my ever running again, because she's really gonna bring it together. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't seal the deal. We had the vote. We were gonna have an organic garden on 71st Street. It's now almost 2 years later, and there's a vacant lot. Instead of a community resource where 76 families could have had a plot of land last summer, where we would have had young people, we were gonna have nutrition programs, we were having seating for people, and we're talking about 71st Street and how we build a community, how we bring things in, and this was a perfect opportunity. And I spent hours on that project, and I was so sad to see that it hasn't happened. The money's just sitting there, hasn't been used.
Okay, Ms. Clark?
Yes. So, well, she gets an F. Now, why do I say that? We have primarily 4 communities in the 5th Ward: Hyde Park, Woodlawn, Greater Grand Crossing, and South Shore. I give her 25% on Hyde Park because they got some jobs. I give her 5 in Woodlawn, a 10 in Greater Grand Crossing because they did get a new school, and they do have a tip, and 5 in South Shore, which totals 55%, and on everybody's grade and everybody's school, that's an F. Now, in reference to what I would have done differently, I would have jumped on that Dominic situation immediately, okay? She knew 1 year before that Dominic's closed that store was going to close. She knew that. Not only did she know that, Dominic's closed on December 28, 2013. Then 2 weeks later, she went down 71st Street and closed every single grocery store on 71st Street. Not to mention, we just got a new grocery store, small bodega type grocery store on 71st Street. And guess what? It's also another Arab grocer. So what are you talking about? You don't want Arab grocers, but you won't let another Arab grocer come into the community? Whatever the situation is in that regard, no, we don't discriminate against people. People of color discriminating against the other people of color based on stuff that's unfounded. The $1.3 million for the alderman menu, she's been in this ward as alderman for 15 years. That's $19.5 million. Where is the money? There are African-American contractors out here that can bond $1.3 million. I know it sounds like a lot, but in the world of construction, that's pennies. All right? We need a micro-marketing program. We should have had that done in our ward, and that is not done to deal with vacant houses and development across this ward. She's not part of that program. The 5th Ward is not part of that program. And in reference to Jackson Park Hospital and all the things that they have going on over there, the community needs to know more about the programming that's existing at Jackson Park Hospital, and also they need to know more about the programming that's going on at the University of Chicago. There's a lot of free programming going on over there with children, seniors. They have all kinds of studies centered around economic development and, well, economics and age. And we need to know about these things.
That's right. I'm
trying to live to be at least 80. So, you know. So basically, those are the things that I would say I would have done differently. We have a spiff on 71st Street.
Good. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
So I told you about the first time I met Alderman Hare stood at the meeting, and it was incredibly abrasive. She was super condescending, and it's unreal to me that if you're an elected official, you would talk to your constituents that way. Yeah. Why would you talk to anyone that way? You gotta be respectful. These are your people. These are the people who know what's going on, you know, and so I think style is a big part of it. If you don't have a style where you can work with people, you can collaborate, people like you, you're not going to get stuff done. And that's what we've seen down here in the 5th Ward. Leslie claims to be progressive. You know, Wants a charter moratorium, she didn't get that done. Wants an elected school board, she didn't get that done. Anti-parking meters, she didn't get that done. That's what happens when you do not build coalitions and you can't work with people. You do not get the work done. What I would have done differently, one of the major things that Hairston did, she voted for that budget. The budget in 2012 that passed, that closed all the mental health clinics, those 6 clinics, that was devastating. Devastating to the community. And if you're progressive, you would not have voted in approval for that budget. That is ridiculous. I would give her probably a D. I think when Leslie came in, she had good intentions, and I think that she probably had the right thing and she was active. But now she doesn't have a plan. She doesn't have a clue. She doesn't have connections, and she does not know what she's doing. And it's scary to see this because we've all seen this through this entire political process. How she acts, how she treats people, her responses to answers. She plagiarized an entire part of her Chicago Sun-Times and Tribune answer about the SSA airport. An entire part that's just lazy. That's lazy is what it is. You deserve way better public officials. We all deserve way better public officials than that.
That's right.
You deserve better. As an alderman, I will be the person who will explain policies to you really clearly, easy. This is how it's going to impact you. And you know what? You decide. You decide. The voters decide what they would like to do. And that's what we do. We talk about things. We communicate. There are no secrets. We don't hide things.
I would give the alderman a D. And I would give the alderman a D because I lost my desire to have children until this community gets better, because I wouldn't want to raise a child in this community.
That's right.
I would give this alderman a D because she's thriving off of your work.
That's right.
Hyde Park has always thrived and been independent. If you want to know the true testament of the alderman, you look at the areas that need it the most, and they don't even know who she is. I would actually give her a little extra credit because the first time I found out how many connections she's had was when she painted this wall with her name and her face. Yeah. She's brought every single official that she could to come here to grandstand for her and to fundraise for her. But you got young people, you have prostitutes in front of my building. You have drug dealers in front of my building. People don't know if they're coming or they're going, and mental health is becoming a crisis that I'm getting alarmed about. People do not want to come here because they don't feel safe here. But even if they do take a chance, they're blocked by an alderman, and if she doesn't control it, and if she may not, I'm going to leave that last part alone. But if she don't control it, she doesn't want it here. I've seen her disrespect every avenue of this community unless she knows that they vote or they have money. And what I want you to understand is that she is catering to individuals so that she can get reelected and have a full pension. She does not care about this community. She's getting reelected off of her mother's legacy and her mother's work. But Leslie Harrison has not served this community well. She gets a D, and I'm doing that to be generous, and because I understand that she got some issues, that she needs to humble herself and realize that I got some issues. But if we re-elect this alderman, then we're going to have to deal with the fact that everywhere you go in the city of Chicago, they say the same thing. I moved out of that ward because that woman has to go. If you go to the Black Caucus, they say she's dysfunctional. If you talk to other aldermen, they say I'm glad I don't have to know her. She has not built consensus. She's been progressive, but why haven't we progressed? I want to understand, how is it that someone that has such a legacy, such power, and such history, that she can't even motivate me to even believe that at one point South Shore, 71st Street looked just as good as downtown Chicago? And I'm going to tell you this. We got to break the mold and stop the insanity. It is Leslie Harrison's time to sit down and find another job because she can no longer represent the heartbeat of this community. And if you Park 56, I'm not going to just be legislative, but I'm going to speak to the hearts of the people who live here, and I'm going to deliver results without excuses. This is the time that we're going to rise up as a community and show Chicago that the 5th Ward is a model ward for the entire city.
We all know how Chicago politics is done. However, you can give her a grade, and we'll see February 25th. That's she gets back into office. I'll let you all be the judge of whether or not she let you down. Now, what I would have done differently is because no matter how many degrees or letters we have, how many accolades and accomplishments we have, she didn't stand for the everyday working people. For the woman that cleans houses, for the man that's in construction, the mailman, the policeman, You know, I'm not talking about the doctors and the lawyers, no, because my people didn't come from that. They came from the South, they came from Mississippi. They worked every day. They were bricklayers, okay, the original bricklayers. And my grandmother baked in schools. That's how she made it, and she raised her 5 children. But she let you all down, the people who had enough faith in her to elect her for 4 terms, and then when you look up and down the street every day, you're afraid to go outside of your houses just to walk to Walgreens, because guess what? When you go to Walgreens, there's 5 people out there asking you for $1. They're selling cigarettes, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that. And the only people, it's drug infested, it is. It's drug infested. The only people that are making money are the Koreans and the Arabs. It's already been said. And I don't have anything against them for making money, but we need to take care of us. God bless the child that she didn't take care of us. Her mother was a teacher once in order to get to be a principal. And so you have to look at those people who go out and work, who gets up at 5 o'clock and catch the Jeffrey 14, the 6, the 15. You work in the hotels downtown, or you going out to the manufacturing plants. You have to make it where when they come home, they feel safe, they feel comfortable, and they know that they have sanctuary there. That's what she didn't do. And so I'm going to leave that rating to you. We'll see whether you punch 53, that's for Brooks, or 56, or whomever. I'm going to leave that rating to you, because if you re-elect her again, you gave her an A. Come on.
Let's give Cliff Kelly a hand. I believe all of you have been very enlightening with all of your comments, and we certainly appreciate it.
Which one?